Welcome, everyone. I don't know how well this mic is going to work. I'll try to stand in front of it, but if you can't hear me, just raise your hand and I'll pay attention and move back to the mic because I'm a moving kind of a person. To start off with, I want to tell you a story and also tell you about the fact that I've taught 300 women how to code, which is pretty exciting, right? Like one single person is contributing to 300 people's other possible job opportunities, which is really why I care about this topic and why I like to share this information, because really the only way that we can change the world is by all getting involved. So in the women that I taught, I did that through an organization called Girl Develop It. They're not super successful lately. You've seen some of the media around them. But at the time, the chapter in Minneapolis was wildly successful, and we had lots of awesome classes going on. And I got to meet a variety of different amazing people, which was pretty exciting. I met this woman. Her name was Chris. And she, for the life of me, I can't remember what she did before, but she was completely outside of tech. She did something. She wasn't involved in tech at all, nothing with developers, not project management, not design, nothing. And she decided that she wanted to learn to code. So she came to some of the Girl Develop It classes. Kind of before I get into that story a little bit, I got involved because that was very obvious there. Because I volunteered to TA a class that they were delivering. So it was an intro to HTML and CSS class. I basically walked around and answered questions as they were teaching the course and just kind of help people with whatever it is that they needed help with. After the class, they asked me if I would teach a class. And at the time, I had very minimal public speaking experience, zero experience teaching people how to do anything except for someone who might ask me something. And so I thought, this isn't really something that I want to do. I don't know that I want to be involved in this. And they sweet talked me into it, of course. And then I did it and realized that it was like the most amazing feeling I ever had in my entire life. Like teaching someone else something that I knew was so empowering. It felt good to know that I was contributing to something they wanted to learn. So after that class, they asked me to teach a whole bunch of other classes, and we ended up building an entire front-end development series where they learned all HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We dug into WordPress. We did Intro to Drupal. Basically just kind of exposed them to what life could be like if they wanted to pursue being a developer. And that's where I met Chris. So Chris attended every single one of my classes. She was super invested, excited to learn, ready for a career change, and just awesome to be around and awesome to teach. And so Chris took some of my classes early on. She was probably a part of the first series of classes that I taught. And the last time I taught a class was about 2.5 years ago, I would say. And Chris was a TA for that class, which is pretty exciting, right? Kind of full circle, coming back and actually being a TA and helping with what we were teaching in the class. And so Chris and I sat down and we were talking, and I was like, how's life? What are you up to? Where are you working? What are you doing? And she had just landed her first React developer job. So she learned everything that she wanted to get started, to know that tech was her thing. She dived in, she taught herself deeper JavaScript, she taught herself React, and now she's working full-time as a React developer. And the situation almost brings me to tears because it's ridiculously exciting, right? To know that you contributed to helping someone become so successful in such an amazing career. So I hope that story fuels all of you to want to share your knowledge, share what you know, find someone that you can teach, and just share things with them, help them get to where it is that they want to get to. All right, so in the corner of my slides, which is also right here, I like to do a little interactivity. So there's two things that we're going to do on Slido. So pull out your computer or your phone or whatever device you have near you, and go to slido.com and then type in DrupalCorn for the event code. So one thing while you're all doing that I'll tell you about is that there's a Q&A section. So if you have questions for me, you can start to populate those as I'm delivering content. So if you want to ask a question about something I talk about early on, then you don't forget about it. Or maybe if you're shy or don't really want to stand up in front of people, it's a great way to go ahead and ask questions without having to do that. And then the second side of it is actually a poll. So I'm from Brainerd, Minnesota, and drove here yesterday through a bunch of really nasty snow. It was not fun. But I wanted to know where everyone else was from. So kind of have this open text thing so everyone can kind of share where they're coming from, and get to know how people's commute was. Hopefully it was better than mine was yesterday. Lots of local folks, which is awesome. right. Well, you'll still be able to all see it on the phone as you're interacting with it, so we're going to dive in and get started. A little bit about me. My name is Tessa Kriesel. I am the Director of Business Development for Tugboat, which is a new thing for me, which is really exciting. Tugboat is a really awesome pull request tool that helps you create instances of your sites, basically with each pull request, that allows you to be able to send those off to a client and obtain feedback from that. So it's a super awesome tool. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a part of it. I also founded a company called Devicate, which focuses on developer advocacy marketing. So we all know that as devs, we don't like paid ads, so it's about coming up with authentic marketing opportunities for developers in lieu of paid advertising. I am obsessed with dogs. If you are shy and want to initiate a conversation with me, show me a picture of your dog and we will be best friends forever. I also shoot archery, and as you probably can already tell, very passionate about teaching others. My slides are also out on the internet, so if you're looking for the slides, because I'm going to have lots of tidbits of information, you can find them on my Twitter, which is going to be in the right-hand corner of the slides basically the entire time. All right, so when I first started creating content for this talk, I knew what I wanted to say, right? I wanted to get more people to teach people what they know. And so I started coming up with how can you be a good mentor, how to get mentorship involved in your company. But then I realized the root problem of why we need to do this is because of our job outlook. So in 2016, there was 162,000 total jobs that were web developer, software engineer, kind of fell under what I would say that Drupal and other things like Drupal would fall into, kind of that web angle. In 2026, there are expected to be 188,000 jobs, way more, obviously. But a lot of our developers are kind of hitting that age of retirement. Developers tend to retire actually pretty early. The general age is between 50 to 55, and it might not be that they fully retire from working, it's just that they retire from being a developer. So they might be leading teams, they might be moving on to a completely different industry, they might work their way up the ladder. Either way, they're getting out of that space. So 10% of the developers we have today are going to retire over the next 10 years. So if we have so many people who are so educated and experienced and know what they need to know retiring, how are we filling in that gap? Because there's already a gap, right? We have way more jobs that are coming up, and we have a lot of people who are leaving the space. So this is a really important topic. The more shocking thing is junior web developer jobs. There is quite a few job postings out there, and they're very, very frustrating. I looked at about 100 of them, and 60% of them required 2 years of experience. I'm sorry, but 2 years ago, I was a completely different developer than I am today, and if someone had 2 years of experience, I definitely wouldn't consider them junior, right? Things are constantly changing, we're constantly learning new things. In 2 years, you're going to be what I would consider a mid-level experienced developer if you're working on projects that entire time. Only 18% of them required 1 year of experience, and what I truly wanted to see was no experience, right? As a junior developer, you have minimal experience. You've either gone to school, you've gone to a boot camp, you've taught yourself how to code, so you've done a little bit, but you should, for the most part, have no experience. And only 22% of those job postings required 0 experience, which made me really sad. This is pretty small, but I can kind of showcase some of the things. This was what a junior web developer position was that I found. They wanted you to have an emphasis of importance on UI and UX design. So not only should you be a developer, but you should also be a designer. They also wanted you to have knowledge of the latest JavaScript framework. How many of you have that knowledge? Okay, there's not a single one of you. Not a single, and how many of you have been a developer for more than 2 years? Okay, many of you, right? So right off the bat, you're not even qualified for this junior web developer position. The things that they're asking are so overwhelming and so just things that someone who's a junior web developer are not going to have. If you were a junior web developer, would you feel experienced enough to apply for this role? I wouldn't. I don't even know that I would feel experienced enough to apply for this role today. So we have to start at job descriptions. It's a huge problem, and if we want to change this job outlook, we have to do a better job of bringing people into the space. So how are they getting this experience if people want them to have 2 years? I do a lot of mentorship in the Twin Cities area, specifically with Prime Academy, which is a code school that they have there. And I can tell you that most of them end up looking for jobs for months and months and months. And we all know that there are tons of jobs out there, right? Tons of them. So we need to be the change that we wish to see in the world. So I broke this up into sections. So depending on where you're coming from or what space you're in, it's going to be broken up into like how you can get involved. So this first section is talking about organizations. So if you run a company that hires developers, or you're a manager for a company, and you have a dev team, this section is going to be super great for you to pay attention to. So why should you hire junior developers? Why should we bring someone in who doesn't have the experience we need, who's going to take time off of our plates, or time, I guess, onto our plates, really, to actually bring them up to speed and bring them to where you want them to be. Team morale. Mentoring is rewarding and good for team morale. How many of you got pretty excited about my story of like teaching 300 women to code? Yeah, it's exciting, right? Like you bring someone in and they're passionate and they're excited, and like that just, that basically like follows through with your entire team. Finding good people is hard. How many of you are currently looking for someone and like still struggling to find that person? Yeah, many of you in this room. So finding good people is really, really hard. So instead of focusing on you have these exact skills, focus on what their personality traits are and what you're looking for in that person, and help give them the skills that you want. It's a lot easier to find someone that is a culture fit or a team fit, and help give them the skills than it is to find someone who's that perfect match for you. Passion is infectious. I think I've already showed that by my extreme passion into doing this, and your ability to recognize that, right? Like they're going to come in and they're going to be excited. They're going to be ridiculously thankful for that job. I can tell you that much right now, because there are so few and far between jobs to find, and they're just going to be excited. They're going to be happy that you brought them on and gave them that opportunity. Because they haven't been doing it for as long as you have, they're going to have new ideas and ways of thinking. They recently learned to code, so they're going to be thinking more about the basics and the fundamentals, where like you're long past that stuff. You're working on projects and thinking about details, and they're going to bring you back to some of those spaces and allow you to think about things a little bit differently. All right, so how do we get started? So if those few things made you decide that you want to have junior developers, how do we get started? Most important one, write better job descriptions. How many of you have seen the dev job descriptions that are like, we want someone who has JavaScript and Java experience? Yep, I've seen way too many of them. It's not even the same thing, and they're not even related. They're completely different spaces. So have someone on your team that's a developer or a technical person review job descriptions. Or if you're a manager who's hiring, don't let your HR team handle this, because they're probably not handling it well. Create strategic partnerships. So I told you how I'm obsessed with dogs, right? Have you guys figured that out yet? Obsessed with dogs? If I were to start to create a mentorship program, I would want to be partnered with someone who also was obsessed with dogs, or who also enjoyed things that I enjoyed, because we instantly have a bond, right? So if someone said, hey Tessa, here's your junior developer that you're going to mentor, they also love dogs. We instantly can connect on something and we become friends. So try to build relationships with people who are common with each other, or who at least have shared interests. It'll make that relationship a lot easier. Do not require involvement. This one's super important. There are, if you're implementing mentorship into your team and you're going to bring in junior devs and you're going to have your dev team mentor them, there might be some people on your team that are just not into it. They either are very introverted, they're very shy, they don't feel like they can teach people. So make sure that everyone is on board before you implement something company-wide. Managers are not mentors. So every time I have this slide, people come back and they're like, but my manager's a great mentor. And I'm sure that your manager is. I've had really great managers who are really great mentors. But the problem with a manager as a mentor is that if you don't know something super basic, like let's say it's just something like, I don't know, like what does a div do? Like just super, super basic thing. You're not going to ask your manager that question, because you're going to be like, oh shoot, I should totally know this. I know that I should know this, and I don't know it. So now who do I ask this question to? So just make sure that it's a relationship where they feel comfortable asking questions and admitting when they're wrong or admitting what they don't know. Open lines of communication. Make sure that when you have these relationships that everyone knows what the best path is to have a conversation, or what those open lines of communication are. So maybe it's every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 2 hours, you pair program together. And you might still be working on your project work, but it can be that like the junior dev comes and sits next to you, they ask questions, they talk through what you're doing. Just make sure that there are structures and lines of communication in place so that the junior developer doesn't feel awkward or feel bad interrupting their mentor who might be working on a project or doing billable work. Track progress and make goals. I think this one is a pretty obvious one, but oftentimes we bring people onto our team and we don't really think about what the goals are. And when they're a junior developer, that's really important for them to know what you're expecting them to learn. So if you're expecting them to be proficient in a certain language or proficient in a certain task, make sure that they know that so that when they're coming into the relationship, they know what goals they have to accomplish. It'll make both of you feel a lot more successful. Build a program. So now you've mentored some junior devs and they've moved on to your dev team and they're no longer being mentored unless you're doing various questions or continuous learning things. Turn them into mentors. They're going to be super close to that situation, right? They're going to be very relatable. They're going to understand when someone's getting into that space. So turn them into mentors and give them the ability to bring in new developers and share what they were just able to experience. All right, so if you're a developer, and you don't necessarily work at a company where you're leading a team, but I have drilled my passion into you enough that you're like, okay, I need to mentor some other developers. I'm gonna get involved and do this. This section's for you. I'm missing a slide, but why you would want to do it? There's a variety of reasons why. It feels super good. I can tell you that right now, but it also has some really, really other awesome benefits. It's gonna grow your network. I have to admit, I would say all of the jobs I've had over like the last 5 to 6 years are all due to my involvement in the tech community in general in Minneapolis. I got a job at General Mills because I met someone through Girl Develop It and she got me the job there. I recently worked at Pantheon and I met some people through that network to get to know who works at Pantheon. And my ability and my experience teaching women to code was like a huge indicator for my qualification for that job. So grow your network. You just never know what's going to happen. You have no idea where that can take you and where that can lead you. And not only that, like we all want more friends, right? I mean, hopefully we want more friends. It's just a great way to do that. It's a great way to meet people. It feels good. So I like coined this kind of silly phrase that is selfish acts of selflessness. Because the first time that I TA'd that class, it felt so good that I was like, there's no way that this is like selfless intent, right? I'm not selflessly doing something. Because it feels so good, it feels a little selfish. So I like to call them selfish acts of selflessness. Step outside your comfort zone. Maybe you're someone who is a little bit more introverted. Maybe you don't actually enjoy getting out in groups. Maybe you don't want more friends. But there is still a space for you to get involved in some of these places where you might meet some people or get involved. It's a great way to do it because there's usually like think of meetups, right? There's like beer or there's pizza or there's like other things that are super unhealthy for you, but make you feel comfortable because you can all sit down and eat or drink together and feel relatable and have casual conversations. So it helps you step out of your comfort zone to start to get to know more people and pull yourself out of that kind of introverted space, especially if you're a remote worker. Master your own skills. So I was teaching the kind of intermediate level of CSS and HTML. And at the time, it was like CSS 3 was kind of a newer thing. And we were going over CSS colors, and I was like, oh, there are a set number of CSS colors. And like one of my students was like, no, there's like actually like 144 or 50 or 56 or whatever the heck it was. And I was like, huh, good to know. So not only do you get to teach things, but you also get to master your own skills, right? Because you have to come back to those fundamentals and remember how you learned them, remember and think about how someone else is going to learn them. And it really brings you back to like just mastering those skills that you have. Their successes feel like your successes. When I told you the story about Chris, did anyone get really excited or like get really like happy, made them feel good? Yes, I know some of you did, even though you're not involved. You guys need to like wake up. Just like make everyone stand up. It feels good, right? Like her success felt like my success. I didn't do it. I cannot take responsibility for all the awesomeness that she did after I taught her, but I still feel like a part of it. Like I feel like I helped her get there. I was a part of her introduction and a part of like her wanting to be a developer, and that feels really good. And you'll make lifelong friends. So Chris and I are close friends. Like, we chat on social media all the time. She'll reach out to me if she's got questions about different things, plus a variety of other women. There's one that's always on my Twitter who's constantly encouraging me, and I'm doing the same for her. So you'll just create new, awesome, lifelong friendships with those people. Okay, if I've convinced you, which I really hope I've convinced all of you at this point, where can you find these people? Where can you find people who are looking to be mentored? Colleges or schools, universities, technical colleges, obviously one, you could reach out to their program lead. I'm sure that they would love to have some people reach out to their students who are trying to learn how to be developers, to have someone who can help them there. I also personally really love the high school angle. That is an angle that I also got involved in. I moved on from teaching adults to code because they're too opinionated to teaching kids to code. Which is so cool because they're not opinionated and they love the idea of putting things on the internet. So also go to high schools or even elementary schools. Like, if you are in a local area, and maybe if you even have kids, like, it's a lot easier to get involved. I did a lot of after school curriculum. So kids would stay after school, and like, I taught them very basic HTML and CSS. And it's exciting, right? Like, getting other people involved in this, especially if you can get like girls involved, the sooner that we can get them into tech and into science and all that good stuff, then the better that our world is going to be in the future. Code schools or boot camps. So I mentioned Prime Academy in Minneapolis. I don't know if Des Moines has any or not, but like, there are a couple actually in the Minneapolis area, and I'm sure that there are some around here. That's a great place because they are in a very accelerated program, and they're trying to learn how to become a developer very quickly, and it's really aggressive in short timelines, and it can be very stressful. So they would love to have someone who they can gut check things with, and they can talk to, and they can help guide them on how to better learn this very quickly. Local organization or groups, I think that one's pretty common. Like, this right here is a great instance of a local group. In Des Moines, the Drupal community here is really strong. And also, like, there's other groups online too. So if you check out Meetup, anything that's related to tech, anything that's related to code, you'll definitely find some people there. And if you don't find one, then maybe you should make one. Maybe you should make a Meetup group of people who want to learn how to code and help them get there and help guide them. Hackathons, this is a really good one. How many of you have been to a hackathon? None of you? You guys are getting tired. Okay, one of you. It's time to wake up. Hackathons are a great way to do it. There are a lot of people who actually come in as like junior devs, which I never would have guessed, to do hackathons because they have a project to work on. They're kind of forced to do it. They're on a team. So someone on the team can say, hey, here's something that you can do even though you might not know everything that you need to know. And so it was actually very enlightening for me to go to the hackathons I went to and meet as many junior devs as I did. So great opportunity. Conferences, right? We're all at a conference today. This is a great time and a great place to find people who want to be mentored. And I'm going to make all of you get a little active here in a little bit, and that will come back to this conference thing of getting involved. All right, so tips for being a good mentor. I've convinced you why you should do it. I've told you where to find them. Now I'm going to give you some tips on how you can be a good mentor. Boost their confidence. That's probably the biggest part of it. On a regular basis, I am constantly self-doubting every single one of my skills and whether or not I am actually a developer or whether or not I am qualified to do things. So if we as experienced industry people are feeling that, then they're definitely feeling that. So make sure that you're boosting their confidence. Explain to them that this is a thing that you go through as well, and help them feel good about where they're at. Guide their career path. So don't tell them what to do, of course, but I go through a series of questions when I'm working with a new junior dev or someone who's new in the space. And I just ask them a variety of things when they start to get to that job outlook point. What kind of life do you want? Do you want super busy? Do you want super structured? What kind of languages do you enjoy? What kind of work do you like doing? And that really helps guide me, like, whether or not they're going to do corporate work, or whether or not they want to do some more external work, or whether they want to work at a really fast-paced agency, or wherever a product maybe. It just guides me into like helping them know that, and then from there I can help give them more information or give them more tangible skills or resources to help them get to where they want to be. Be available. This is probably the hardest one. Like, I'm not even joking. Just your time and actually being available is the hardest part, especially for me. So I really recommend that you designate like special scheduled times that you're going to get together. Maybe it's every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, you meet at Starbucks, and that's kind of your time. And they know that they should put their questions together, they should put things they want to talk to you about there, and that's kind of their time to drill you. Because otherwise it's going to be ping, 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 like all the time at random times, and it's going to get out of control and you're going to want to quit. So be available when you say you're going to be available and try to keep it organized and structured. Share resources with them. They don't know what they don't know, right? Like, they have no idea what they need to know. So we have to tell them what they need to know. So share as much as you can with them. Share resources, books, articles. If you see something interesting, share it with anyone that you're mentoring. Working coding examples. I'm like exclusively self-taught developer. I refuse to do anything in tech because my dad told me that's what I should do. So I thought that I should spite him and not listen, and long story short, here I am in tech. So working coding examples were perfect for me to figure out how to do things, because I'm like, okay, cool, I can see this code, I can see what it's doing, I can take that into comparison and start to figure out what I need to do and start to tweak that. So those are really valuable, and I think oftentimes we don't think about that. We just think like, oh, well, I need to show them how to write that code, and sometimes it's a little bit easier to reverse engineer things. It's like if you're taking a VCR apart. I used to do that when I was a kid all the time, which is why my dad told me to be in tech. I would like take things apart that wasn't working, and the only way that I'd be able to like re-put back together a VCR is if I saw how it was together to begin with. So giving them an example is really great. Live coding sessions. I will tell you this, live coding sessions can be very, very, very stressful for a mentee or for a junior developer, especially if you're just sitting there watching them. So instead of saying, hey, write some code in front of me, maybe you write some code first and allow them to come back with a little bit of code to add to what you've already written, and then have conversations back and forth. And make sure that as you're doing that you're never like, oh my gosh, you did this totally wrong. Explain to them like, hey, I understand why you did that. Like, this makes sense, obviously it's functioning, but if you did it this way, it's going to be more performant or more successful or cleaner or whatever the situation might be. Code reviews. Same thing, don't ever tell them they did something wrong. It doesn't take much to ruin someone's confidence, especially when they're trying to learn something new. So give them constructive feedback. Explain to them how they could have done something better, or a different way that they could go about it, and talk through why that's different or talk through why that's better so that they can understand that. And if you want to scale your ability to mentor more people at one time, lead a study group or start a meetup group like I had mentioned. It's more powerful when you can lead more people, and not only that, those other people that you're mentoring can talk and get together without you in between sessions. And so you're kind of just starting to build a group of people that trust each other and that you're helping. All right, so we talked about companies, we talked about if you're a developer. Now we're going to talk about if you're actually someone who is new in the space and you want to mentor. And you don't even have to be new in the space. You could be, maybe you're a front-end dev and you really want to get into back-end development, or vice versa. Anytime that we're looking to have someone teach us something, we should keep these things in mind. Set expectations. So before you get into a relationship, express to your mentor what you want to learn and what you're hoping to get out of it, and give them the same opportunity, right? So it's a two-way street. Each of you are going to expect different things, and the more that you can talk about them and actually compare them, the better. Be respectful of their time. So as I talked about, if you're a mentor, set up scheduled times, make sure that you're available. It works the other way around, right? Be respectful of your mentor's time, because they're a volunteer for the most part, unless they're doing it at work, and they might not have a lot of time, so be respectful of that scheduled time that they set. Come prepared with an agenda. Know what you want to learn. Maybe if you're looking to learn a specific library, or maybe you're like, I really want to get a job at this place or at this type of place, know that and make sure you're talking with your mentor about that, about how do I get here, how do I find this. We set up those goals, and then each time that you meet with them, you have an agenda of like, my overarching goal is this, how do I break that down, and what are my small goals to get to each time we meet. Mentors are volunteers, usually, unless it's at a company, but just remember that, right? Like, we're giving away our time to teach you something that we don't necessarily get paid for. Although I've never been directly paid to mentor someone, I've gotten a lot of other benefits, which I've shared with you earlier: growing your network, meeting new people, being able to be involved in things that I wouldn't have otherwise. Own your learning. So it's not your mentor's job to decide what you need to learn. It's your job to to decide what you want to learn and where you want to be, and own that, and and make sure that your mentor knows where you want to go, and allows them to be able to give you what you need to get there. Express your appreciation. And if you're a junior dev, you probably don't have a job yet, and it doesn't have to be a financial appreciation. It can be a thank you note. It can be a really long email. It can be a LinkedIn referral. It can be a social tweet talking about how great that person is. There are many ways that you can do appreciation that will get someone else the exposure and give them something that you can't do with money. All right, so if we all help others achieve their dreams, then we're going to achieve ours, right? Have you gotten that out of this talk yet? Good things? Yes? Okay, you guys are way too quiet. All right, so I'm gonna get you more involved now. So we're gonna go back to Slido, and I'm actually going to pop a new question in there. So if you stepped away, head back over. I'm gonna ask a new question. So what option best describes you? I want to know where you feel like you fit. Do you need a mentor? Are you already a mentor? What's the other one? I'm a manager looking to implement mentors. Where do you fit personally? And my graph is not working because people are voting and it's doing nothing. Let's see if we can get it a different way. Let's try now. Oh, there we go. Yay! I'm a mentor already. Like, congratulations to all of you who are already mentors. That's amazing. We have a lot that need a mentor. We have a lot that want to be a mentor, and we have a lot that are managers. Okay, so this is where I'm going to wake you guys up. You guys are going to hate me, and it's going to be great. If you are already a mentor or you want to be a mentor, can you please stand up if you can physically? Come on. You can do it. You're going to have to move in a little bit anyways, get the blood flowing. Okay, so if you are someone who is currently sitting down and you are looking for a mentor, I want you to look around the room right now and just remember some of these people so that you can go and talk to them after this session. All right, so you all can sit down. Those of you that need a mentor, I would love for you to stand up so that they know who you are now. I'll stand with you. Yes. Okay, so some of you are not standing because there was a lot of you that voted, so this is not fair. You can sit down. You all saw there were some of you that are a little shy, but what I wanted to get out of this is that we're at a conference, right? There are tons of us that know things. And even if you do want a mentor, you still know things. There are things that you can teach someone else. It might not be specifically Drupal development. It might be something with marketing. It might be something with project management or design or event organizing. Every one of us knows something that we can share with someone else. All right, so I have one more poll question. If you have successfully partnered with a mentee or a mentor and have had one of these relationships in the past, how did you find them? Like, how did that happen? Work? That's a good one. How many of you work for companies that hire junior developers? Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Great. Not enough of you. Every single one of you should be raising your hand. We all should be taking that opportunity and hiring junior developers and giving them these skills so that our job outlook is way less sad. Nonprofit board, that's a super good one. I love that. In the community, previous job. I think the Drupal community is really good at this. Like, the Drupal community is just such like a welcoming and kind place. I'm involved in both Drupal and WordPress, so I get to be a part of different communities, and I admittedly feel like the Drupal community is much more welcoming and much more open to the idea of mentorship and have a lot of those things already in place, which is absolutely amazing. Launch code. What is launch code?
It's a boot camp.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Is it local to here?
Kansas City, yes. I don't know if it's nationwide.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, launch code, that seems like a great one. Falls into those boot camps I was talking about. I can't see this on my screen, so I have to figure it out from here. Employers, church, that's also a super great one. You would never, like, church is in a place that you would, like, think that you would find someone, at least in your space, right? But you just never know, like, where you're going to find people. I actually met someone on the plane not that long ago who was learning to code, and I was like, oh, yes, this is fate. So it's exciting. Like, you never know where you're going to meet people.
Yeah, my Lyft and Uber drivers sometimes are like, oh, yeah, I've been playing around with web development, you know, and I'm excited to go to a conference, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That happens to me all the time. I agree. Or they'll be like, wait, what? What do you do? Then you explain it, they're like, oh, wait, tell me more. I want to know about this. You just never know. So even if you're introverted, try to talk to people. You get to know them. You'll figure it out. All right, awesome. That's all I have. If you get anything out of this, I want you to teach someone something. You don't have to be a full-blown mentor, but think of something that you know that someone else doesn't know, and do it today. Teach someone something today. Thank you.